You have like, what, 40, 50, 60, 70 years of experience, career pivots, transformations, things that you want to make sure that other people know from your life. And suddenly you're like, I don't even know where to start. I'm Karen Wilson and welcome back to my channel. I'm an indie author, communications mentor, and a personal story coach. And what I find is when I sit across from people, it might be friends, colleagues, clients, business owners, you name it. A lot of times people are in two camps. There's one where they feel like they don't have a story to tell. And there's others that have so many ideas and so many collective stories that they're like, I'm not really sure where to start. So if that's you, this video is for you. Most of the writing advice out there is either motivation, cheerleading to keep on going, and I'm guilty of doing that sometimes too. And the other advice is to like giving you like prompts, story prompts, so that, you don't have a blank page. And that's not you. You have tons of filled pages. You just are looking for some way to figure out, where do I go? How do I keep ending up with like 20 stories in one? And how do I choose the one that is right for my audience, whether that's for a book you're writing, a talk you're creating, or maybe it's just for yourself or your business, right? Those are a lot of different ways that we can use story as communication. But the story doesn't land ever if there's too many stories in one story, right? So what I'm going to share with you today is a reframe. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So let's dig into this, right? So we've already talked about the fact that this is not a motivation problem. It's not a confidence problem. It's like the way it's shaped in the container. That's it. And that's just a skill. And that's good news because that means we got this. Let's first talk about why this happens, because there is actually a real reason behind it. Every thread feels connected because it is connected. If you're writing a personal story from your personal life, there's so many things that are connected, and it feels like we have to explain absolutely everything for the person to get the point. And here's the good news. You don't. The two traps that people fall into mostly are, number one, trying to explain absolutely everything. And number two, just freezing, throwing it, putting it in the drawer or putting it in the Google Drive digital dust area, deciding that you just don't want to deal with it. Maybe this isn't for you. You'll just continue to post that selfie on Instagram and move on with it because that's an easier story to tell when it's yourself, right? When it's a tidbit. But no, we don't need to do that either. I shouldn't call out Instagram so much. I started writing stories and I started sharing stories when I was really young. And I was about 7 years old when I started. And then I got my first job at Dairy Queen. And I learned that communication was often, especially when you're with the public, like people are super interesting, right? It's actually when I started becoming a little, people watching, my people watching behavior. And I found that the more personal I was about stories and stuff, the more I would connect to customers. And this went on throughout my life. I always had jobs put in sales positions. I didn't even really understand what it is that I was doing because I just naturally would use analogies and stories and connect and be honest and tell my experiences. And because of that, I had so much trust that I had repeat customers all the time. Didn't matter what job I had, I would always, escalate in sales. I wasn't really sure what I was doing until I got this opportunity to become a network marketer, which I didn't even know that I was signing up to be in network marketing. I just thought this is really cool. Someone said, oh, well, you're posting on Facebook and Instagram anyways, and you're so motivating. You're such a great storyteller. You could actually make money with this. And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be cool? if I could like work from home and just share my life and share my story and help people. And yeah, I went down that rabbit hole. And once I went down that rabbit hole, I wanted to get out of the rabbit hole. I was like, how did this happen to me? So I started to take courses and learn more about having a sustainable business online through writing. And that led to virtual assistant positions. It led to being coached by a story coach. And the first time that I submitted my story, my coach said, you have about 12 different ways we can go here. And I thought I had given one story. After months of scaling my life into a little 3-minute story, which there's nothing harder to do than that. Like, what do you cut? What do you keep? What's important? What's not important? I had so much material that I thought, well, it must be time to write the book. So I wrote the book, and then I decided that I was going to make a play out of it. And so I wrote the play. Now, these are 3 different containers to tell one transformational story. And since I scaled it in those 3 areas, I know very well how hard it is to decide what stays and what goes. One story across 3 formats: a 3-minute story, a full-length book, and a 60-minute one-woman show play. I didn't have a clarity problem. All 3 of them shared the same transformational message. What I had was a container problem, and I didn't even know that that was a thing yet, because it's almost like I was so much better at being myself and connecting with these little teeny tiny stories all the time, that when I made the choice to get better at being myself, I got worse. So don't let that happen to you, or do let it happen to you. It becomes a great story. I digress. So let me show you what a good container looks like, so that maybe it'll help give you a starting point at figuring out where you're going to start. The real issue is there's not too much story. There's no garbage writing. It can always be used or improved for anything. And you have the motivation, which so many people don't have. So motivation, I think that's an internal thing. I don't know that it's a skill unless you put yourself into the habit, and then over time, it just becomes intrinsic. But the fact that you're like, have so much to work with, I'm so excited for you. If this is hitting home for you, you might want to subscribe. This entire channel is dedicated to this kind of thing. So it's free, but let's move on. The first thing is really just to define the real transformation that you want your audience, whether it's a reader or someone in front of you. What is the transformation that you are transferring your knowledge to? Then everything in your book, which could be, again, multiple different stories that all share the same transformation, and it's kind of like a longer route to go, or it could be like one singular story. You're going to find that a lot of the stories that you've written, once you start thinking about this transformational theme, you're going to be able to go through your story bank, and you're going to be able to say, oh my gosh, I have a theme. I have a life theme. I have a book theme. And then you won't be able to unsee the ones that just don't fit, that are a completely different topic, that, might be another book, or like I said earlier, like an Instagram post or something. They might fit somewhere, so never throw it away. Don't ever crumple it up and throw it in the garbage. Always keep your bank of cuts and keep them labeled so you know what you've cut. Here's another question that I want you to ask yourself. What is one thing that I want my reader or the person in front of me to feel, do, or experience once they've been with me and the story. There's two trains of thought here. I think that when it comes to free writing, it's a lot easier to free write and just write the story out than to try and figure out what transformation or what do I want the reader to get from it. Because if there's anything that I've learned from my mentors is that if you're sharing something that is personal, if it's written in the right structure that a story should be written in, then you don't have to worry about spelling out what you want them to see and do and feel. That's going to happen naturally. However, I think it's important. A lot of people, especially if you are a small business owner or if you've been in any type of marketing or entrepreneurship, you want to know the reason behind. So I don't want to block that from you, but especially if you already have the stories, because there's nothing worse than a story that has been fabricated for the purpose of you, for you to get what you want. Once you tell or write a story and it's out there, it's actually for them, which is why it's super important to have these anchor points, because then you'll be able to just kind of edit out and soften up your stories where it's very, very clear that this is not in the best interest of the reader. It's just in the best interest of you. And if that's the case, it's not going to be received as well. It's not going to be as entertaining if it's for you and not for them. You have to remember that once you let this story out of your body, it's not yours anymore. It's theirs. I wrote down a few examples here. So example number 1, I want my reader to believe they don't have to have it all figured out to start. Example number 2, I want them to feel like their late start is actually an advantage. Example number 3, I want them to finally give themselves permission to take up space. So whatever it is that you're writing, this sentence on how you want the reader to feel it, believe it, embody it, and move on with it, it can be at the top of every single one of your pages until you feel as though you're not working with a jumble of collection of stories that don't connect. Now, there is another option for that. You could also just make a book of short stories, and you'll find that as you go through them, through the editing and the formatting process, you're going to find that there is a transformational theme to every single one of these stories. I guarantee it. So once you have your main feel of what you want, this is now going to serve as a filter for what you choose to move forward with. The next part is of deciding. You might decide, okay, I've had like a bajillion things happen in my life, and I'm going to choose just one thing to talk about first. Just one thing. And if I choose that one thing, I could probably write an entire book about that one thing, right? Because everyone's story has about 12 to 15 story babies. I just made that up, story babies. I like it. I think I'll keep it. Usually these are the big things that make us want to tell our story. A business pivot, a health wake-up call, a reinvention of some sort. Maybe it's a divorce, maybe moving to a new place, maybe getting a new job or starting a new career or going back to school. So there's one action today, and that is to write down what you want people to walk away with once they've been in the orbit of the story that you're working on telling, whether that's in your book or just in front of somebody on a stage or in some sort of communication material that you're working on. You're going to use it like a compass. Now, remember, don't get stuck on the word transformation. Transformation is just a meaning like you didn't know how to do that. Now you do know how to do that. And there was a lot of like tough things on the way, and somewhere just close to you going, I get it now. Something big probably happened, right? Everything serves that moment for the reader. You're not telling them that. Okay, so that's what you're going to do today. Then when you sit down to write, you have that as a compass. The next call to action is like, just do the work. Thank you for hanging out with me. If you haven't already, make sure that you hit subscribe because there's more of this kind of stuff coming and it's totally free. Thanks. I do appreciate it. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.